Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. To subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, please visit us at www.thewisdomcircle.com.
Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. My name is Tony Ponturo, here with my good friend Ray Warren. Hopefully you've enjoyed our podcasts here in 24. I think we're 22 to 24, somewhere in there. I guess I should know the exact number. But we've had a lot of fun, and we think we've hopefully shared some important things with you, the audience. If you're new to the Wisdom Circle, welcome. Ray and I are going to sort of do a recap for 24, what we think we've learned, some great insights, maybe some things that surprised us. And then we'll, in our second episode, talk about what we expect in 25. So as we'll sort of do a two-parter for you. So Ray, I'll start with you. How do you feel today as we get into the holiday season?
I am feeling very excited, Tony. There's a lot of moving parts. It's the most wonderful time of the year, but yet there's a lot. And I think everyone who would be listening knows that the dream is that it's the most wonderful time of the year. The reality is it's busy. There's a lot of moving parts. So we try to just, enjoy the holidays for what they truly are, which is getting family together and hanging around and having a good time. I think, I'll start with the first thing is like, here we are. We made it to the last couple of weeks of the year. And I just think it's been fantastic. I mean, I think I've learned a lot from you. I think I've learned a lot from our guests. I hope they've learned something from me. But I think it's we've done some good adapting, which kind of goes to anybody's career, right? Like you've got to adapt. And I think we've adapted the podcast based on the people we're inviting on, from people going into business school to people who are Emmy award-winning sports broadcasters. So it's really been fun. I mean, I look forward to it, and I look forward to doing it with you, obviously. So.
Yeah. No, I think, first of all, I won't say we were surprised, but no one said no to be on the podcast. So they took, put their career in our hands. And we had, as you pointed out, we had Gen Zs to millennials to baby boomers. And really, to your point, I learned, as I listened to particularly the Gen Z element of our audience, because I know that I've gotten frustrated at times of that generation coming up and how they look at things, and maybe not willing to understand why they look at things that way, which is, we don't want to go into the office, we want flexible time, we sort of want to make our life and work a better balance than maybe you and I did, and so it was good to hear. And then one of our guests, and we're only bringing up her name because it wasn't on our podcast, but Julie Souza from AWS, after we turned off the cameras, said to Ray and I want to thank you for not asking me questions like, well, as a woman, how would you look at this? She said, you always just said as a person. And we didn't even say as a person. We just said, how would you look at this, Julie? And she was very complimentary about that, not to tap us on the shoulder, but it really said something about how you have to listen and talk in today's sort of environment and culture.
Yeah, and I think it never crossed my mind to ask. So what's it like to be a woman in sports? I mean, Lord, she was terrific. And I think that's part of the teacher mentality that you have done. I have kind of hit on the corners working at your college and doing things and having young folks in my life and things like that. But no, I think we definitely, going back to this, I have a story. Going back to the comment about your frustration, and I think, I don't know who in our generation, I think we did leave out that we've had Gen X's on too. So just, I know you hate it when I do that, but I'm just throwing the Gen X generation in there. But I think that, there isn't anybody who did what we did the boomers who just get it immediately that, oh yeah, well, the pandemic hit, people started working from their dining room table. Of course they don't want to go back to work. Like, we don't automatically get it. But through the podcast and talking to one of our younger guests, she made it very clear that this is a generation that is not great socially because of the pandemic, because of social media. When I say socially, I mean in physical interactions. So they're not looking to run into a conference room and be in a meeting. They're not looking to be on an elevator with the boss's boss or your boss. And they're doing just fine because there are a lot of companies that are just fine with that. In fact, and I haven't decided, so I'm not going to talk about the outcome, but I just heard yesterday that the administration current has written in a 5-year grandfather clause to return to office, that no company can legislate it or you're fired for 5 years. Haven't thought about it. Not going to think about it right now, but it's interesting what an impact it's had. And so the story I had was about, we had dinner Saturday night with friends who have done very well in the business, and their kids who are, probably X's, Gen X's, they're coming up. And one of the sons thought that people who were working for him weren't making enough money. So he went to his CFO and said, I'm looking at what everybody makes, and these 3 people are not, I don't know if there was a sex or a diversity issue there, but they're just not getting paid enough. And the CFO gave him sorry about that. He said, well, maybe we should cut senior management pay a little bit or hold firm while we raise everybody else. And he's like, yeah, we're not doing that either. And so he was frustrated in talking to his mom, who was the person at the table who brought the story up. He actually said, do you think I should just pay him out of my own money? Like, I just don't think that was happening in the 70s and 80s and 90s.
No.
And so it's such a perspective change and that's that about taking care of each other, because they've been through school shootings and they've been through, some school shootings, some active shooter drills. It's different. It's not better or worse. It's just so different. And I love that we learn from the folks we have on the show.
It's funny, you're talking about salary and income. A couple of times I had to make the argument to people that work for me, particularly some in our New York office, because New York, as you know, had a different pay scale than St. Louis. And they looked at their peers and they said, well, people in my job at an ad agency buying media are making X, and I'm only making Y. And the way our company worked was, well, you need to understand that you may get as much as 100% of your salary and bonus, and you're getting stock options. So you really have to look at it in a 3-tier system, which is how our company worked. But it was always very difficult. They couldn't get past. One person left, and then 5 years later, he came to me and said, I hate to admit this, but you were right, because he did the arithmetic. And so, I think we all, you would hear one number, and we'll just make up a number. Okay, Ray's making 200, I'm making 150, but even though someone says I may be able to make 350 with the bonus of the stock option and get more than 200, right now I'm not equal, right? And so,
absolutely no. Listen, I think one of the other things that, and I made that mistake once actually, where I did not put in the full compensation on job offer. I'm not sure how that would have turned out. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I did that. What I remember is you and I sitting in the cubicle at BBDO telling each other what we made. Like, you would go to McCann or SD and I would say, what do you make? Oh, great. I'm going to go to Benton and Bowles. That was rare. Back in the 70s and 80s, nobody told anybody what they were making.
No.
And now it's fully transparent. There is no hiding anything. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it's different. It's different. I'm not even sure if companies that post jobs don't have to tell you what the job pays before you take it. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm just saying it was weird if you ask somebody, what do you make, other than you and I, but if you ask somebody else, across the hall, what do you make, and I'm not telling you.
No, it's a very. The other thing, just so we try to get a bunch of topics in, is we've asked for input. We get input when we're around people. We haven't had a lot of people use the site to ask questions or to complain or to suggest. So we encourage that for those that are listening. But one of the things we have heard is sometimes people think we talk too much sports, and I get frustrated with that. I think we use sports because we lived in that world for so long as examples, hopefully, to bring across things for people to think about. We're not really talking about aren't the Giants pitiful and should they fire their GM and coach. That's for other podcasts. But we do use sports in the sense of a context of a life I lived or you lived. But um, so I'll just put that out there, in the
Yeah.
argument of, and a lot of people we know have lived in the sports world. So, but we're going to try in 25 maybe to be conscious of that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how we frame the discussion. I think that, there's nothing, I think in general, other than writing code or being a surgeon, we could probably both be, I'm going to insult all the lawyers who might be listening, but we've probably both read enough contracts where if you show us the contract, because I just read one the other day, I'm like, yeah, that's got to go. But I don't think we necessarily frame it that sports really does encapsulate an awful lot of industry, right? Everybody's got the same job, right? Which is to do a good job, show up however you show up every day, try to advance your career as you go forward, however that happens. Company needs to make a profit, and that might be where things change a little bit, but the company needs to make a profit. They have expenses. And that's the same thing. I think the thing about sports is it's so hard to understand when you hear about Soto and I don't want to go too deep into sports, but when you hear about Soto making 765 million, you don't know how to get your arms around that. But if you think it's over 15 years, Steve Cohen's got $20 billion. So that's like whatever. And that he's going to sell a lot of tickets in those 15 years and the rights fees and blah, 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 Cokes and beer and hot dogs. It's not hard to run those numbers. And these are not stupid men or women buying teams. So I think we have to work harder at framing it and maybe bring in some other ideas in the course of that conversation from other industries. Because I just think it's good. I just think, a wider, diverse array because God knows we've both had enough exposure to other companies, corporations. You're consulting, I've consulted. I've worked in ad agencies where, we had so many different business units. We couldn't pitch new business. At OMD, we could not pitch a new business account because we were conflicted in every account. Auto, insurance, fast food, sports drink. Pick an account. We couldn't pitch. So and you got pitched by all those sales folks who were telling you everything about those accounts. So, I think it's great. I think it's a great discussion. I think
Yeah. No, and we both, I know you have a love of music and can talk about that for days. Being
way too long. That's my kids.
and even as late as late as last night, if I meet new people and if I say, okay, Anheuser-Busch, we spend $500 million a year, they sort of are interested. But if I say I produce some shows on Broadway, that's what they want to talk about, which always sort of surprises me because it's showbiz, right? So it's, again, I always say that as underlining that, okay, sports is great, but tell me how you produce a show or tell me how you work with the actors or, et cetera, et cetera. So, so that's some of the things
we went a little deep on some things like NIL and private equity, which they are interesting sports topics. And I don't think we shouldn't do those. And, I think if we look back at 22 to 24 episodes, because I'm not exactly sure either, covered a lot of different ground about things. So it doesn't, not to sound defensive, but just that as we go forward, the good news is we're going to want to be fresh every week that we drop a podcast. So there's lots to talk about, that will help other people understand more about the industry they're in. And I think, I was originally not sure how I felt about going outside of our original demo of 25 to 34-year-olds, because we want to bring guests on who can kind of guest host and try that out, and ask us questions about relocation or pivoting to a managerial position and open door policy and leading and all those things. But then you and I talk very clearly and friendly, so it's always coming from a good place. You were working pretty hard on other folks who might have bigger social media followings or might have to offer of an older age. And I think we got a lot out of that too. I think we learned from them. And I think they shared things that could be learned. It's not all about learning. Part of it's about having fun and getting to hear. Well, I'll mention the name when we had Andres Cantor on, and he talked about, the World Cup, and that he wanted to start out as a writer, and they asked him to do an on-air talent gig, and he was great at it because he was so informed, because he wanted to write accurately. And now all of a sudden he's Andres Cantor, which is probably the most famous soccer caller in the non-US, although I might even say US, because even though he's done some Premier League games in English, I don't know who the most popular soccer announcer is in the US. So if not Andres Cantor, then he's everywhere, the most popular everywhere else. So you learn from people and how the journey and how to just let it flow. I think we did a good job on that. What else do we have? I'm just going to cheat here and take a look at some of our other topics. Well, we did have an election.
We did.
And so we're in that little womb of post-election, pre-inauguration, but it's busy times down there in Washington, D.C. So,
Yeah, we sort of didn't touch on it because it was so sensitive. I feel like the tone has come down a little bit. I will tell you, we had a neighbor down here in Hilton Head who was not happy with the election and has decided to move to a blue state. So you get real emotions with all of this. But I think it's important to watch, and listen and and draw a conclusion. Maybe not a conclusion, but draw an opinion when someone has a chance or a second chance in this case.
Listen, yeah, I feel like there's something that is, it's too hard to tell, but I think it's just a matter of, we had an election, nobody's challenging the election. We'll have a smooth transition of power. We'll kind of maybe, regardless of who voted for who, and there's something comforting about that level of democracy returning. Now, we don't know what the hell is going to go on in the next 4 years, but it's nice to feel that. And then I think there's a lot of work that both parties will do over the next 4 years to try to win in 28. I did see my first presidential poster this weekend driving around. It said Vance Musk 2028. Now, what's interesting is Elon Musk is born in South Africa and cannot be the president,
Right.
but that there's folks out there like they're ready to roll. And so, hey, I think that it'll be what it is.
It was someone, and I won't mention the name because I'm not sure exactly, but it was someone well known, reasonably well known, and he said, what people really want, most people want, is to feel safe, live their life, have affordability, good education for their kids, and an overall safe environment. And they don't really want to be told a lot of different things, which I think we got into a little bit in society. They don't want to be told how to think or how to live their life, as long as you're protecting them. And then I talked with my wife, Wendy. I watched too many of these. Like I watched The Lioness, which is about the CIA attack, and The Agency, which is about the CIA. And you see all these kind of, they are fiction, but it's based on some form of reality. And you realize every day there's someone out there fighting, the bad guys, if you will. That's pretty scary. I mean, you just got back from New York. Did you see the thousand of uh, sort of whether the remotes or planes, whatever is going in the sky?
Drones? No,
Rose, thank you,
no,
thank you.
no. I think that yeah. So it's funny because it's almost like Lioness and the agency and some of this. They're on a streaming service that shows the way our world has evolved.
Right.
And yet, when we're looking for something to watch, we'll just put on Law and Order, which was a network show,
Yeah.
and brings it more home. It's not about like somebody out in, Yemen.
Yeah.
It's somebody like on 49th and 6th fighting the bad guys. And so I think what a lot of people might be doing is kind of bringing it all in a little bit. Like, I got to just take care of the fam, Illy. I got to take care of the people I love. I got to just, be an American and support and whatever. And there will be factions who won't. And that's always been the case. I mean, so, hey, we're going to get through it. The Republic will survive, it's my opinion.
Yeah. And then, on the business side, I think the things you hit on it, the things we sort of talked about and observed is clearly talking about the broadcast community, the media community is changing with technology once again, with streaming. You've got, your old company looking to spin out, traditional cable networks uh, and sort of keep with, seeing the benefit of streaming. We're seeing sports now. What do we have? A Christmas Day Netflix game, as well as, I can remember the first games on Amazon this year, the Thursday night games, and trying to figure out, okay, where are they? Is it a good connection? Now it's when I hit the streaming side of my TV, it comes on and there it is, and it's like seamless. So that really has changed dramatically as we all are watching television, and you can sort of understand how a younger person will go, yeah, I know 500 channels, that old song, but we can just stream things whenever we want, and and
Good point.
I don't need to go buy cable,
Very good point.